As you know, I'm a Pilates teacher mainly, and I work also with other things, but mainly Pilates. And Pilates, in the Pilates world, there's the concept of in a center that needs to be strong and sturdy, fixed. Okay. When you see Pilates people move everywhere around the world, you see um, sticks moving their arms and breathing very gently and very softly, but they are sticks, walking sticks. They don't move, okay? And if they move very,
As
either very, very, very violently or very gently, but never within the normal stress strain phase two, where where life happens, let's say, where life happens. That's not the target, because people understand that it should be either very, very soft, it's for your granny, or it's for an athletic person, and they put some football player over a machine doing whatever. So coming from that world, and I can tell you that during my first 5 years, I was trained as a um, traditional Pilates teacher, because there's traditional and contemporary. So traditional within the line of the people very close to Joe Pilates that I learned with. And during those 5 years, I saw myself as very tall, and people saw me like that, but I was living in pain. My back, my lower back I lived in pain, and I thought I was not doing enough because I was trained abroad and I was training myself by myself. So I said, I'm not doing enough. I did more and more and more until one day I met a rower that, with one session, put in my belly out, allowed me to breathe on my belly. And I said, I'm not going to leave the table because I feel like a monkey with my belly out. I'm not going to move from here. Fix me. But I was actually fixed. So I understood that I could breathe somewhere else. I understood that I was thinking totally wrong about the body, because Pilates was sold to me as something meant for health and for the health of your spine. Those are the words of Joe Pilates in his book. But if you see Joe Pilates working in his traditional, original, there are some videos working with people, he's never stiff. The spine is never stiff, is moving all over. He's doing things that we, interpreting his videos, we Pilates community, we say, well, in his times, he didn't have the knowledge that we do nowadays. So I'm sure he wouldn't move that much if he was living today, because he's doing something wrong with his neck or with his lumbar or with his twisting or because the guy goes all over and his students go all over. He used to go all over, but we learned through the lens of people that had already learned biomechanics and traditional anatomy. And those are the people that teach us now what Pilates should be. So, what did I change in my practice through Biotensegrity? It allowed me to move away from what was the scientific view of the core of the body, how the body should move. I should fixate one part to move another. I do the same exercises. I use the same equipment, exactly the same archival equipment, exactly the same what I learned, but my lens is different. So I allow people to move. I will allow people to explore themselves, and especially I don't see the equipment, the springs, as something that condenses you, because if you put yourself under a load of the spring, you may think that the spring is there to condense you, to shrink you. But for me, the spring is there to inform me that I also have a spring inside and I can spring out using the spring, the extra compression from a spring, um, to help me spring out, to help me expand. So I don't work the core ever. I work the the relation of everything to everything, with this sense that I am a spring, and I have some tensional springs and some compressional springs, but I mainly focus on the tensional springs in myself, the ones that can exert external force or force, not by making me small, but by making me um, more spacious. Also, I also train with kettlebell, which is thing as a very thing,
I know
but
what it.
it is a very poor thing if you use it as kettlebell was taught mainly. Well, there are two lines of kettlebell. Also, there are lines everywhere. So there is the Russian school and the U.S. school. The U.S. school is uh, colored from biomechanics. So you hinge at the hips, you have your flat back, you do push pull, you use the breath coordinated with every motion. You need to breathe here and breathe out there. So it's to concentrate you. The Russians, well, the traditional Russians that started to use the kettlebell, they were moving. So it's a dance with a very heavy weight on your hands, asymmetrical, but it's a dance in your body. And if you see someone working kettlebell like that, if you come from a biomechanic perspective, you say you're gonna hurt your spine. That's, for example, what I thought when I saw the belly dancers. I was always thinking those ladies, they must have horrible pains in their spines because their spines go all over. I was thinking, and I remember Bob saying something about the lumbar spine and how uh, what's the importance of getting motion in a place that has a problem in the spine, like a hernia or something. I'm putting words in your mouth, Bob. Sorry, but I remember you saying something around these lines. Uh, my thinking, what I learned, and what I know most of the world is thinking of the body is that it should be fixated, uh, steady, strength to hold, not
Stable.
stable in the sense of biomechanical stable, that is fixed, hard, non-moving. So all the programs, they are there. They can be used with both lenses. They don't need to change. I know that you can do, I believe that you can do Tai Chi with a biomechanical, and that it is done for sure with a biomechanical lens, and people move as
Yeah,
machine.
yeah.
So this is how I changed my perspective using, and then with the concepts derived from what I understood of superstability, and also with this concept of integument, the way that I see Leonid looking at and evaluating the body and perceiving the body. I think it comes from the perspective that if everything is connected to that integument, the integument should express what is connected to it. So if you look at foldings, colors, that I think the Oriental people used to do, the color, the texture, the shapes, they all reveal what's happening inside. You just need to read that map, and we are not used to read that map. We need to go to neurophysiology, take blood, cut, imagine what is going inside, and no, there is a mirror that we can get accustomed to and get. Uh, we need to relearn how to read what we suppose is inside that is reflected outside. And I see that Leonid, that's my vision. I see Leonid doing that with the kids,
Mm,
um, and transferring it to people with no disability. And that's what I try to use with my people with no visible disability. I try to use the same. integument expression of what is inside, namely the folds in my work.
Well, thank you for answering my question. Yes, a long answer, but it's because you used the word Pilates, and Pilates is a word in the general language, and everybody has similar idea of what it would be. You have and you use the equipment and all of that. That's fine, but you're you are teaching something else,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. Give it something, another word. Give it give it another
Yes.
name. It
You
isn't
know,
as marketable. It's not as marketable,
yes, I
but
need to sell my product. If I call it Nunates, I wouldn't have as many. Well, maybe now that I'm getting known in the market, but not before. I needed to sell something, and Pilates word sells.
yep.
And there is value in taking the traditional Pilates exercises and approaching them the way you do. I haven't done much Pilates, but for a while I went to a class with the machines and such. And I brought this body and this understanding of the body, and I could, perform or do what I was being asked to do, but it wasn't in the same way as the other people were. And that was because exactly what you said, Nuno, I did bring a different lens. So if Nuno's offering people those exercises, maybe the distinction comes in the explanation, the description of what you're doing and how you're doing it differently. On that, I do have another question if people are interested, but first, we haven't heard from Bruna or Cecilia. We've heard a reading from Jason. We've heard a question from Bob. But if any of you would like to even just say hello or bring something up, now would be the time, because we have less than 10 minutes left. And as you know, I like to give everybody the opportunity. So just go ahead and unmute. Bruna, her camera's off. Maybe you're not even able. I know it might be time to go pick the kids up. Anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Go ahead, Cecilia.
Oh, well, I was listening to Nuno, and he was really expressing everything that I feel I've been learning with him. I have a very limited capacity to analyze and have these words, stability, super stability. What's the difference between one and the other? For me, it's difficult to get there. My relation with biotensegrity is my own body and my background of having been a dancer, and that's how I understand biotensegrity, and I understand so well what many of you say. I understand it in my own way, and talking about the core, I was thinking, yes, I've learned, as a dancer and also as a Pilates teacher. I learned that we need to focus on the core, on the inner muscles and the transverse abdominals and all that. But with all this development of being with Nuno and understanding his way of dealing with the body in a different way, it really, when I analyze a little bit what I was doing when I was dancing, if I now I understand and I can use the words oxytocin, and feel, engaging the whole body when moving. when I engage the whole body in moving in a dynamic way or in a more static way, doesn't matter. My core is working. You know, my core because the body is balanced, is, you know, is intelligent enough to respond. And so this is my understanding when I look at, you know, how people define the core and the superstability and the stability. I just understand by what I feel in my body. And definitely what, you know, this description of Nuno, the way he approaches the body, it's so liberating, and it's so it's so, you know, organic, and it's so simple, and it's so nice to go that way, you know. That's the way to go. That's what I feel. I have a very limited analysis, you know, like you all do, but that's my reference. It's my understanding of my body, and it's very, very enriching to hear all this all of you. Thank you.